Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijan Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Shri Radha Madhav ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Srila Nectar Devotion ki Jai. So congratulations everyone for completing your exams and making it to the point of the Nectar Devotion. As I mentioned in the beginning, I truly am almost done grading your exams. So please bear with me a few more days. I am moving, and so that's why I was having this delay, and things are now settled down. So we're back into the regular schedule. Um, so very soon you'll have your scores. I'm very sure that just about everyone, I think everyone has passed. So no worries about your exam. I will now share my screen for the Mangalacharan. So the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is written by Rupa Goswami. So although these are the Mangalacharan prayers at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, these are equally relevant to our study today, as we will see. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshururmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam. And I will also read the translation, which we normally don't do, but just so we can see the meaning and which is relevant to our discussion today. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamsha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother, Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatt, Gopal Bhatt, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Sri Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaitacharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishakha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. I offer my respectful respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Rishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they're full of compassion for the fallen souls. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. I offer my obeisances to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today I will cover the overview and preface of the Nectar of Devotion. Now, generally, a person does not think that the preface of a book is very important. But as we will see in the Nectar of Devotion, the preface and especially then the introduction are very important. And they actually serve as the basis of the entire book, and they're part of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada makes into the preface and introduction. So one could easily miss it, but easily miss these sections, but they're very, very important. So the Nectar of Devotion is known as the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. So Prabhupada has often said that Bhakti is a science. So these Prabhupada often said that Krishna consciousness is a science. So, what is a science and where is it written down? That science is this nectar of devotion. It is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And today we'll see why this book particularly is known as a science of Bhakti Yoga. So, in our Bhakti Shastri course, there are four books that are most important, most required. They're considered the most essential books, and therefore we cover them in Bhakti Shastri. One is obviously the Bhagavad Gita. It's spoken by Krishna himself. It's the core book, as we've seen. So wonderfully, it is presenting all the knowledge that we need to know, the essence of all knowledge. And the other major book, the big book, is Nectar of Devotion. And this is because it is the science of bhakti. Krishna in the Gita tells us to surrender unto him. This is his final instruction in 1866. And in this book, Rupa Goswami tells us how to surrender unto him. The process of surrender is described. And also the goal, actually. Sambandha, the relationship, Abhidheya, and Prayojana, all three are described. In 1933, at Srila Prabhupada's initiation, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed him to study this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the law book on devotional service. So one time when Srila Prabhupada was in Los Angeles and this book was published, Prabhupada held up the Nectar of Devotion and he said, "This book is the law book of the Krishna consciousness movement." So if we read the Nectar of Devotion, we'll see it is very detailed. And there's so many details and things described in this, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it's almost like difficult to read through certain sections because it's so detailed, all the different rasas and different relationships and the mellows in which the devotees are relating with Krishna. And you think it's written like a law book. It's written like like a dictionary almost. Well, that is intentional because this is the law book of the Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada said this. And where did he get it from? Imagine Srila Prabhupada personally received this instruction from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He received the instruction at the time of his initiation to study this book. So how important this book must be. And at that time, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur called this book the law book of devotional service. So we see how Srila Prabhupada also was always simply repeating the words of his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada made it the law book of his movement because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him that this is the law book on devotional service and told him to study this book. So if Prabhupada was asked to study this book, then how much should we study this book? How important must it be for us to study this book? Very, very important. And for your knowledge, this book is so expansive, although it is not a very big book, but it is so dense and so detailed, so condensed, that in our course, we only cover the first section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is the nectar of devotion. So we only cover the first section of this book. And remember, the Nectar of Devotion is a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And we cover only the first section of this summary study. That is the first 19 chapters. And that by itself is very large. That by itself is a lot to digest. And why only the first 19 chapters? Because the essence of the entire process of bhakti, the whole science, you could say, is covered in the first 19 chapters. And the remaining nectar devotion is sort of describing us in more detail the rasas and the devotees and how they relate with Krishna and those rasas. But the philosophy itself, the philosophy of devotion, is covered in these 19 chapters. Personally speaking, of these 4 books that we cover, Nectar of Devotion is my favorite, the first 19 chapters. And I enjoyed studying the Nectar of Devotion more than any other book that we cover in the Nectar in this course. So it is very, very juicy. And as we will see, this is also the meaning of the title of this book. So the objectives for today's class are, first of all, to discuss the title, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What is the meaning of this work? And why is this work called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? Second is to discuss the significance of Srila Rupa Goswami. So this book is written by Srila Rupa Goswami. And the reason I read the translation of the Mangalacharan prayers is because twice in these prayers, we offer our respects to Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada chose these verses for our Mangalacharan. So one question that came in the chat was, who wrote these? They're written by different acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada chose this Mangalacharan for us, this set of verses. And twice in this short set of verses, he offers his obeisances and respects to Rupa Goswami, and one full verse he dedicates to him. So what is his significance? What is the significance of the author of this book? And the third one is to identify Srila Prabhupada's purposes in writing the Nectar of Devotion and to discuss their relevance to our lives. So we have a lot to cover, but we will cover it in good time. So we will start with the title. What is the meaning of this work? And the title tells us what is this literature, this great literature about. So we are going to enter the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and we do this by analyzing these words. So the first word is bhakti. Bhakti means devotion or devotional service, as we will see. And the introduction focuses on defining what is pure devotional service. So in our next class, we will look at the definition of pure devotional service. We often wonder, what does it mean to be practicing pure devotional service? So this book defines bhakti. It is the book on bhakti. Therefore, this is the first word. It has no other topic, no other business other than discussing the topic of bhakti. Then, not just bhakti, but bhakti rasa. Rasa means juice. Those of you who speak Hindi will also know that rasa means juice, just like we have the rasa of watermelon or mango, or these are different juices coming from different fruits. So the fruit of bhakti gives us a certain juice, and that juice is a mellow, and that mellow becomes a relationship that we have with Krishna. So bhakti rasa is the relationship that we have with Krishna. And every devotee, different devotees have different relationships with Krishna. So the Nectar Devotion talks about the many different relationships that a devotee can have with Krishna. And how do those relationships manifest? What are qualifications for those relationships? What are the signs and specific characteristics of these different relationships? In the preface, Srila Prabhupada mentions that there are 12 principal relationships. So we tend to think of them as 5, but there are actually 12. There's many more also, but 12 principal relationships. Then this is not just bhakti rasa, or the mellow or the rasa of bhakti, but it is bhakti rasa amrita. This book gives us the amrita or the nectar of this bhakti rasa. And why is it called nectar? Because it is eternal. These relationships are eternal, and therefore they're amrita. They're nectar because the juice is so nectarian, it is so sweet. But it is nectar because nectar gives immortality. So these are the amrita, the flowing nectar, the eternal nectar of bhakti rasa. Well, you say, this is very nice. I will get a little bit of bhakti rasa amrita. That here Rupa Goswami is sharing just a little bit of nectar with all of us. This bhakti rasa is a little nectar. It is a small bit of nectar which a person can taste. But no, bhakti rasa amrita sindhu. This is the ocean of the nectar of the mellow of devotion. Bhakti rasamrita sindhu. So in Sanskrit, we have what is known as samasas. And these samasas, they are like words put together. Sorry. They are all, put together one after the other. And so when you read a samasa, it depends which samasa it is. But in English, when you read a samasa, you generally read it in the opposite order. You read it from right to left. So Sanskrit is read left to right, but when you get a samasa, you actually read it right to left. That's how you translate it into English. So this whole title is one samasa, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is one word composed of many different words. And so when you read this, you read it as the ocean of the nectar of the mellow of devotion. The ocean of the nectar of the mellow of devotion. And this is so imagine how elevated this work is. Most literatures do not even talk about bhakti, devotion to the Lord. But this book is entirely dedicated to simply understanding love for Krishna. And therefore, Prabhupada makes a short form translation of this Sanskrit title in English as the Nectar of Devotion. So Prabhupada says in a lecture that he gave on the Nectar of Devotion, he says, that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Sanskrit word, we have shortcut the translation, Nectar of Devotion. But then Prabhupada goes on to explain what is the full meaning. This is a painting here, Rupa Goswami, writing this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami's purpose is to present the ocean of Bhakti Rasa. Rasa means mellow, the juice. It is just like ocean. This ocean has limitation, but that is unlimited. So Prabhupada is actually giving such a marvelous point. I was saying how, this is the ocean of devotion. It's not a little bit, it's an ocean. But Prabhupada is saying that even an ocean has a limitation. But this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is an ocean, and it is an unlimited ocean. So it's even bigger than the biggest ocean that we have experience of. It is an unlimited ocean of rasa, of ecstasy, of happiness, of juice. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared bhakti to a great ocean. When he was speaking before Rupa Goswami, he said that it is just like an ocean. So I'll take a drop of it, and you taste it, and you'll understand what is this ocean. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described a small portion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti, devotional service, there's rasa, taste, and the taste is amrita, or eternal. So this point here, that this bhakti rasa is like an unlimited ocean. But here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Rupa Goswami, I'll just take a drop of it. And you also take a drop of it. And by taking a drop of it, you'll understand what is the ocean. So this is actually a fact that love for Krishna, devotional service to Krishna is like an ocean. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also describes it in his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He says that Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's leelas, are like an ocean of nectar. But the key thing here is that if we get even one drop of it, if we get even one drop of this ocean of happiness, we will not know anything greater than the ecstasy and the happiness and the rasa experienced by tasting that one drop of nectar. If we could actually just experience a drop of it, we would be the most fortunate people in the world. There would be no happiness that is greater. And we cover that in chapter 1, actually, that how bhakti or devotional service, one of the characteristics of it is moksha lagutakrit, meaning that it makes the happiness of moksha or liberation like the happiness of eating dry crackers, right? It makes it lagu, very small, very ordinary. And that is the characteristic, that is the nature of bhakti, that bhakti has that that ecstatic feel, you could say, that level of happiness that we experience in the practice of pure devotional service is not found anywhere else. So not in Brahmananda, not in the material world, nowhere else. In the preface, Srila Prabhupada writes, every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship, whose taste is very sweet. So people get so involved in what they do, right? They're so passionate. Why? Because they're getting some type of rasa. They're passionate because there's some passion there, there's some rasa there, there's some sweetness there. And that sweetness is so nice. Prabhupada writes how the family man or family woman works so hard for their family. They work day and night, they labor day and night just to take care of their family. Why do they do that? Because they're experiencing some rasa, some ecstasy, some bliss. But this rasa in this material world is chapala sukha. This rasa is chapala sukha. It has two characteristics. One is that it does not endure very long. It is not amrita. It is not eternal. The relish or taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure. It comes and goes. And we all, those of us in family life, we experience this, we know this, right? One day we're all very happy and we're the world's best family and the most happy family and happy person in the world. And the next day, some argument takes place, things go sour, and it's all like, the whole thing is crashing down on us, right? So this is, and then again, material Maya Devi is so strong that just when we are starting to feel some renunciation, some detachment, she'll make it good enough that we start feeling, oh, it's very nice, very nice, very nice, and start trying to enjoy it again. And then again, and then again. So like this, it's Chapala Sukha and Bhoga Tyaga. So this is the second quality which makes it Chapala Sukha, the position of alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation, right? Bhoga Tyaga. So this is the rasa of this material world. It is characterized by Chapala Sukha and Bhoga Tyaga. But spiritual life, Bhakti Rasa, however, is Amrita. The mellow, relished in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, does not finish with the end of life. What to speak of in this life, it is continuous. Even in our next life, it continues perpetually and is therefore called Amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. So all the things that we do in this world, all the fame that we gather, all the prestige that we receive, all the power and wealth that we earn. All of this does not stay with us. None of this stays after death. But the bhakti, or the devotional service that we do for Krishna, that stays with us for eternity. That is the only thing, in fact, that stays with us, the service that we do for Krishna. So that is to our eternal credit, as Prabhupada says, and that goes on. We start from there in our next life. So how important it is. So after defining the title of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prabhupada then, the preface then talks about who is Srila Rupa Goswami, who is the author of this book. And even before that, it's very important to note that Prabhupada dedicates the nectar of devotion to the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. And he quotes this verse in his dedication. So this is actually, if you open up the nectar of devotion, you'll see that the dedication of the book is given to the Goswamis. And Rupa Goswami was one of the six Goswamis. So now we will look at, talk about Rupa Goswami and the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. Who were they? And why are we known as Rupa Nugas? So Prabhupada quotes this verse, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Sanstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they're honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental, loving service of Radha and Krishna. So this is a very key verse, and there's a reason why Prabhupada quotes this or makes this his dedication. He offers respectful obeisances to the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were the intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya, and who led extremely renounced lives. They were living in Vrindavan, subsisting on just fruits and buttermilk and very almost nothing. And they were continuously writing all these literatures. And why were they writing them? Simply for our benefit. Today, we would not have known the science of bhakti if it was not for the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. So they were very expert in studying all the revealed scriptures. So this is from the Shad Goswami Ashtaka, Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuna. All the scriptures. So there's so many scriptures. And most of us don't have the time to study all of them to figure out what is the best knowledge, what is the essence and the highest knowledge in these scriptures. Well, they did that work for us. They studied all the revealed scriptures, and then in their books, they wrote down only that which is most essential, most important for us. They gave us that highest knowledge. So why did they study all these revealed scriptures? With the aim of establishing eternal religious principles. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipino Sadharma Sanstapako. They were establishing dharma, the eternal dharma, the highest dharma, parodharma, the eternal religious principles. And not just for themselves. They were not misers, that they were just working for themselves, but for the benefit of all human beings. For all human beings. They were the greatest philanthropists. They were concerned about the benefit of all others. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis. So they actually told us how to serve Krishna in the mood of the gopis. This was unknown to the world. It's the Goswamis who revealed this great science, this great knowledge, this very confidential knowledge to us. The mood of the gopis, the most confidential, loving service of Radha and Krishna. So he dedicates, Prabhupada dedicates to the six Goswamis, but particularly he translates the books of Rupa Goswami. So Prabhupada says here, speaking on this verse, they, the six Goswamis, wrote so many books just to establish what is real religion, to distinguish it from false religion. This is real religion. This is true, genuine spiritual practice, not artificial. Why? They were simply doing welfare activities for the people in general. Lokanam hitakarana. So the devotee always wants to work for the benefit of others. Formerly, the society was not so much degraded, Prabhupada says. As soon as you gave evidence from the Vedic literature, they would accept. So these Goswamis were making research from the Vedic literature, Samaveda, Rig Veda, and Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, the Puranas, Mahabharata, the Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll find in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu evidences, Nana Shastra. So you'll find in all of our acharyas, they study these scriptures so much and they quote from all the Vedas. And sometimes, honestly, I would also wonder, like, why did they care so much to study all these literatures? We have the Bhagavatam, we know it is the ultimate scripture knowledge. Why did they take this effort of basing everything on the Vedas? The reason is because, especially at that time, even now, but especially at that time, people would accept the Vedic authority. And so if you showed that the Vedas are actually telling us this is the highest truth according to the Vedas, then that was, that was the conversation. You could say conversation over. This is the final verdict of the scriptures. So they actually were making thousands of devotees at that time, converting great philosophers, religionists like Jiva Goswami. We see he argued against great philosophers because they had thousands of disciples, and by converting them, these great debaters and Sanskritists, thousands of people were being brought to Krishna consciousness. And of course, most importantly, for thousands of years to come, for the many generations after them, they were writing and disseminating these books. So the question comes up is, should we read these books? Should we actually read these books? Are the books of the Goswamis so necessary? Because we have the Bhagavad Gita and we also have the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we said the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. The Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes in the introduction, is the essence of all knowledge. Everything is in the Gita. But Narottam Das Thakur explains it to us. He says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hamam Bhujabo Se Jugala Piriti. When and only when I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't just give us permission. He told us, he ordered us to read the books of the six Goswamis, beginning with the Nectar of Devotion and the Nectar of Instruction, the books that he translated and gave to us. Because if we actually want to understand the greatness, the beauty. We want to appreciate the mellow of rasa uh, in serving Radha and Krishna, then we must read the literatures of the Goswamis. Because the Goswamis have actually opened the door of the spiritual world for us, which we will see. I'm coming to that slowly. Why Rupa Goswami? Why has he opened the door? Why did he have the power to open the door for us and let us into the spiritual world? We will, see that. But the point is that they have, according to Srila Prabhupada, and therefore their books are very important. Of course, many of their books are not introductory books, so we cannot read them whimsically. We have to go and process. So some of their books are actually above our understanding. Two books in particular, Govinda Lilamrit and Vidagdha Madhava, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not even allow his disciples, who were very pure, they were living in India in a very pure environment where there were no billboards, society was so much more pure. But he did not allow his disciples to read them. They asked Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur that, can we print these books? And he said, yes, you can. And he said, you can print one copy and you can put it on your altar and you can offer it incense. You can worship it. So some of the books of the Goswamis are so confidential about the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna that we are not even allowed to read them until we are spiritually evolved enough to understand the meanings of these books, because they are so intimate that when we read them, we will misunderstand them to be mundane affairs. We will not understand that this is actually transcendental love. We will think, oh, this is also lust, and understand it with our material senses. To understand those books, we must have spiritual senses. We must have a spiritual, focus. So, so this is a great treasure, and Srila Prabhupada has opened up this treasure for us in the Nectar of Devotion, which we are ready to read. With Krishna Prabhupada making us ready for the higher books, but you could say not higher, more intimate books. But this book we are ready to read, because Prabhupada has given us the explanations so that we don't misunderstand. So now, who is Rupa Goswami? Why the focus on Rupa Goswami in the Mangalacharan prayers and also in Prabhupada's writings, in the books that he translated? Prabhupada writes or says, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya. When will he give me shelter under his lotus feet? So this is part of our Mangalacharan prayers, which are the Prema Bhakti Chandrika, which I believe is written by Narottam Das Thakur. This verse is found there. And Rupa Goswami actually was trying to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya. And that desire was in Lord Chaitanya's heart. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually empowered Rupa Goswami to do this work. He didn't give anyone as much mercy, and he did not give anyone as much blessings. Well, I shouldn't say that because everything is absolute. But in his pastimes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established that Rupa Goswami is particularly empowered to do this service. And no one else could understand his heart more closely and more deeply than Rupa Goswami, on the same level like Swarup Damodar Goswami and others. In the spiritual world, Rupa Goswami is known as Shri Rupa Manjari, and his position as a Manjari has a very special significance. We are known as Rupa Nugas. Prabhupada actually called us, he named us Rupa Nugas. Who are we? We are Rupanugas. And what does Rupanuga mean? Rupa means Srila Rupa Goswami, and Anuga means follower. We are followers of Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada particularly writes in this preface, which you will read this week, the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. So he says it's conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. So you may say, well, okay, it's conducted under the instructions of Srila Rupa Goswami because we have his books and Prabhupada is translating and following his books. So one could say it's done under the instruction of Srila Rupa Goswami. Why is Prabhupada saying under the supervision? Well, we will see why. It's actually done under his supervision. Rupa Goswami is actually still here with us even today. We are called Rupanuga. Anuga means following, going, following the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. So as the Rupa Goswami is following his predecessor, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so we have to follow our predecessor. Then we will be successful. Okay, there's a problem with my screen. Oh, I see. Okay, it didn't zoom back in. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, is this good now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So then we will be successful if we follow Rupa Goswami. In Golok Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani is lovingly served by 8 principal gopis, of whom Lalita Sakhi is her dearest friend. These intimate maidservants of Srimati Radharani are assisted by 8 main manjaris, with Srila Rupa Manjari being the leader. So, our movement, Prabhupada is saying, is being conducted under the supervision of Rupa Goswami. So why is this? Because in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we are in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the follower of the gopis, right? His special gift to the world is that he gave what no other person gave, which was what? Love for Krishna in the mood of the gopis. So if you want to think about it in this way, in the spiritual world, there are different groups, different coves in which devotees are serving Krishna. And one world, one area is Golok Vrindavan. And within that area is the gopis who are serving Krishna in Madhurya Ras. And that is, far above us right now, but that is our goal. That is the highest rasa. That is the most celebrated relationship in our philosophy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is encouraging us, as Prabhupada writes in the purport to one song, one Vaishnava bhajan, he says, to join the rasa dance of Krishna. He says that is the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is to join the rasa dance of Krishna. So this movement is giving us love in the mood of the gopis. Now, there are 8 principal gopis, and there are 8 principal manjaris. The gopis are the ones who are directly serving Krishna. And these 8 principal gopis are actually not ordinary living entities. They're not ordinary jivas. They're actually the internal energies of the Lord. They're more than jivas. So, for example, they can never fall down to the material world in the way that we do. They never fall down. Mother Yashoda, the 8 gopis, Srimati Radharani, they're on a level that is, they are also of the jiva category, but they are more than jivas. They're especially, they're actually Krishna's internal energies expansions, which we are also, but not as separated. We are more separated, so to say, separated incarnations, as Prabhupada writes, or expansions. They are innate to the Lord. So there are 8 principal gopis. And then there's the gopis are directly serving Krishna. They're, so to say, in step with him, dancing with him hand in hand. And then the manjaris, they are serving the gopis and Krishna. So they're kind of like the assistants that bring together the pastimes of the gopis and Krishna. They're like, kind of the stage setup. They set things up. They offer different services, food, drinks, dresses, all these things to the Lord and 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 Krishna. Now, among the gopis, there are also different groups of gopis. There's Srimati Radharani's gopis and there's Chandravali's gopis. And as part of their rasa, they're also at times competing with one another out of transcendental ecstasy, because this gives pleasure to Krishna. So some things some gopis know, but other things other gopis know. Even they're very close to Krishna, they don't know everything. And certain gopis cannot see certain things. In terms of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, they cannot attend or be part of all the pastimes. However, because the manjaris are the helpers, they observe everything. They can see all of Krishna's pastimes. It's just like, if they're, if Krishna or Radharani needs a flower, they're going and getting it, and therefore they're around Krishna and Radharani. They're the servants that attend them. So just like the servants also live in the mansion of the master, even though they are not the master. In the same way, the manjaris, they are with Radha and Krishna all the time because they're assisting them. And particularly, they're assisting Srimati Radharani. She's kind of really their master. So the 8 manjaris, they know everything about Krishna's pastimes, even more so than the gopis. And the leader of the manjaris is Sri Rupa Manjari. So therefore, everything in the spiritual world, all the service that is done to Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world is done under the supervision of Sri Rupa Manjari, of Rupa Goswami. And no one in the 3 worlds knows more about Krishna's loving pastimes than Rupa Goswami. And therefore, he is known as the Acharya of Bhakti. So this is just following what I was saying. The manjaris, they please the sweet divine couple by carrying messages, preparing tasty beverages, stringing fragrant flower garlands, etc. So all of these services, these are all done by Rupa Goswami and the other manjaris and their helpers for Radha and Krishna. So, if we, let's say, go back to the spiritual world and, someday become liberated, then we could become one of the assistants of the manjaris. Even to become a manjari is really not possible for us. It's really very, elevated. But we could maybe become an assistant of one of the manjaris in some very small way. So they please Krishna in all these ways. Before creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Lord Brahma with the details of the creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge. Right? So the Lord enlightened Brahma with knowledge about all the Vedas, and therefore Brahma spoke this knowledge, or you could say gave this knowledge, and therefore we are known as the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. In exactly the same way, the Lord, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency. By this potency, Sri Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory.
Just pick up stuff from temple and we can eat together.
She was saying that tomorrow, she wanted to have darshan of before her surgery.
In this way, he spread the Krishna consciousness. He spread Krishna
Hare Krishna,
consciousness
Prabhuji.
throughout
Hare Krishna,
the world.
Prabhuji. Many people are on mute. We
So,
are not able to hear you.
We give Srila Prabhupada the credit for spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world.
Hare
Not we
Krishna,
give, all the
Prabhuji.
acharyas give. Srila Prabhupada gets the credit. Prabhupada here is giving Rupa Goswami the credit. Why? Because if Rupa Goswami did not write down the activities of Krishna Vrindavan, how would we have known about it? What would have Prabhupada distributed all over the world?
So Gopal,
Okay, you cannot hear me.
his brother.
No, I can't hear
Hare
you.
Krishna, if you're not speaking, can you please mute your line?
How old is he? He must be younger than his elder brother or younger?
Younger brother.
Yeah, from my side, everything's okay,
Yes.
it seems. Can you hear me now?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, we have somebody, other, devotees who are
Let me
unmuted
try
and
the
they're
headphones.
Can you mute everybody because we cannot hear?
I don't know, nothing. I didn't change anything. It just all of a sudden stopped.
So we are able to hear you. It's the problem is someone else is speaking. So if
Okay.
others can mute their line, I think that is beneficial for all of us.
Oh, I see. Because I didn't hear someone else speak. Now, can you hear me speak?
Yes, Prabhu, loud and clear.
Okay. Okay. So I think, let me see. I can mute everyone else. So that I can do. I didn't hear anyone. Okay. Okay. Is this better? Yes. Okay. So, at what point did you stop hearing me? Was it this slide or the previous slide here?
Prabhu, from the beginning of this Brahma slide.
Okay, this one. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you. So before creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Lord Brahma with the details of the creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge. Again, Brahma, no? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew Prabhu. And so Brahma wrote down all the Vedic literatures for us because the Lord enlightened him. What gave us? He sort of spoke the Vedic literatures, and therefore we're known as the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So in exactly the same way, the Lord, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency. By this potency, Srila Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory. In this way, he spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So I was saying how the Acharyas give Srila Prabhupada, and the whole world gives Srila Prabhupada credit to spread the credit of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. But Rupa Goswami, but Prabhupada gives Rupa Goswami the credit for this. Why? Because if he had not written these works down, how would we have known about them? Prabhupada spread his teachings all over the world. And so Prabhupada here is giving the credit to Rupa Goswami. And then here finally, as I was saying, Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasacharya, or one who knows the essence of devotional service. His famous book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service. So Rupa Goswami is known as Bhakti Rasacharya. There's a pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there was one verse that was spoken by Srimati Radharani. And Lord Chaitanya said that only 3 people in this world understand the meaning of this verse. One is Srimati Radharani, the other is Rupa Goswami. He was able to understand it. And the third, I believe, was Swarup Damodar Goswami. So he could understand the heart of Srimati Radharani. And by reading the science of devotional service and reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service. We similarly can understand this is what bhakti means. Finally, a few important points here. Srila Prabhupada, he had a very strong connection with Rupa Goswami. And not just connection, the point is that the transcendental knowledge that we find in Srila Prabhupada's books was imparted to him, one could say, was transferred to him in the courtyard and possibly by Rupa Goswami. So Prabhupada accepted sannyas on September 17th, 1959. Then he moved to an upstairs room at the Radha Damodar temple and concentrated his energy on translating into English and purporting the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada spent many years of his life at the Radha Damodar temple, right next to the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada specifically mentioned, this is very famous, that this corner, this place of the Radha Damodar temple where Rupa Goswami Samadhi is there, is the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. It is the center. Why is this? Why the hub? Because Prabhupada said that from that point, just like from the hub of the wheel, you can see all the parts of the wheel. From that point in the spiritual world, you can see all parts of the spiritual world. So Prabhupada and the Acharyas, they were not just writing out of some intellectual exercise, right? We all know that. They were writing what they were seeing. They were tattvadarshis. So they were writing what they were actually seeing. And so they could see the entire spiritual world from that point. And therefore, it's very significant that Rupa Goswami's Samadhi is there. And Srila Prabhupada stayed at the Radha Damodar temple in those rooms and did much of his, the first two cantos of the Bhagavatam, he translated right there. The first two cantos of the Bhagavatam are the Krishna's lotus feet. So he did his very essential, important work there. There also was a place where he received the inspiration to start this movement, to travel to the Western world, and he received the empowerment and strength to do this great work. Prabhupada says, I eternally reside in my rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. These rooms, which have now been purchased by the devotees, and they are forever Prabhupada's rooms. And if you ever go to Vrindavan, make sure to visit those rooms if you already haven't done. I'm sure many of you have already done, but they're very, very extraordinary. So I'm going to share the screen once more so it properly shares. Srila Prabhupada's decision to stay in the Radha Damodar Mandir was an indication of his conscious and fervent desire to live, serve, and write under the shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami, and to very practically seek his blessings for his life's mission of translating the Srimad Bhagavatam and preaching in the West. Srila Prabhupada's decision to stay in the Radha was an indication of his conscious and fervent desire to serve Rupa Goswami. This image here is very significant because here we see that Rupa Goswami is actually coming to Srila Prabhupada. And it's Prabhupada indicated on a few times that he left this place when Srila Rupa Goswami instructed and ordered him to go and preach in the Western worlds. It was by his direct instruction that Srila Prabhupada left. He had a vision of Rupa Goswami who came to him, I'm sure many visions, but at least one we know, and he gave him this instruction. In one book by Mahanidhi Swami, it's written that there's a recollection of disciples that Prabhupada said, don't worry about anything. That Prabhupada said, Rupa Goswami said to him, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna. You will be successful, I guarantee, because I will be right with you all the time. So this last sentence is very significant. Rupa Goswami is saying, I guarantee, because I will be right with you all the time. So therefore, Prabhupada said that this Krishna consciousness movement is going on under the supervision of Rupa Goswami. In the spiritual world, it's going on. Also in the material world, he was there, observing everything that Prabhupada was doing, at least at that time. Now, I don't know, but at that time, he was there because he said, I will be with you all the time. So this is who Rupa Goswami is, and this is why Srila Prabhupada translated the Nectar Devotion as the law book of the Krishna consciousness movement. So I'll stop at this point. I've spoken a lot, and we will open it up for any questions, comments, discussion. Thank you for your kind attention.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for such a wonderful Nectarian class. It was so enlivening and so much enlightening. Learned a lot. We are very, very grateful to you. I have a question, Prabhu. How would you mind explaining how does this whole Vedic literature and Srimad Bhagavatam and everything came in the Guru Parampara? Like, how did it even got to Rupa Goswami?
Yes. So the sampradaya is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya. So the Lord reveals it to Lord Brahma, and Vyasadeva then writes this down, and Vyasadev's guru is Narad Muni, right? So Brahma gives it to his son Narad Muni. Narad Muni instills it in Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva writes it down. Shukadev Goswami is the son of Vyasadeva. He speaks the Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit is his disciple. And in this way, down, we get this. Now, the Vedic knowledge, the spiritual knowledge is there since the time of Brahma. But within Vedic knowledge, there's a very confidential aspect of knowledge. And that knowledge is Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, right? The very you could say, confidential, devotional, only devotees know this. So that was not revealed, at least not explicitly in books and things, revealed until Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave it to us. And now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he appeared on this planet, he didn't write anything. Very interesting also. Showing the power of chanting and dancing and what our process is. Lord Chaitanya was a great scholar. He was very well read, all these things, but his primary business was chanting and dancing. And he didn't write any books. He spoke only 8 verses. And those verses are called the Shikshashtakam, which we have and are written down. Those he spoke. So all the spiritual secrets or knowledge of the pastimes of Krishna were hidden in Lord Chaitanya's heart, and no one had access to it because he didn't write it down. So the people who wrote that down were the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and they were instructed by Lord Chaitanya to do this, particularly Rupa Goswami, because Lord Chaitanya, in front of all the devotees, tells Rupa Goswami, tells the devotees that he knows my heart. Rupa Goswami actually understands my heart. So therefore he became the Rasacharya, the Acharya of Rasa. Sanatan Goswami gave us the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Jiva Goswami gave us the Shat Sandarbhas. So some of the Goswamis gave us the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. Some of them gave us the deity worship. But as far as rasas go, that was Rupa Goswami was the authority on that. And so this is how we get it. And then of course, after that, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Maharaj Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Srila Prabhupada, they give us the works of the Acharyas, who are giving us the Vedas plus this very amazing knowledge.
So Prabhu, we can say that, like you mentioned, that they are Tattva Darshina. So they wrote everything from their heart, not physically from any book. Am I right, Prabhu, understanding?
Yeah, everything, they were seeing it, right? Because that's why they're manjaris. Most of the Goswamis are manjaris, and Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari because he participates in those pastimes. There's so many stories, like for example, of Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, where they would go in the process of like their chanting and things. They would go to this. They would go in this. They would enter the spiritual world. They would enter into their eternal swarupa. They would actually, kind of lose consciousness of the external world, and and they would offer the Lord sweet rice, as is the role of the manjaris, right? They cook the sweet rice, they offer to the Lord, and in their absorption, they are touching the sweet rice to check if it is hot or cold, or if it is cool enough, but it's too hot and it burns their fingers, right? So they were kind of living in both worlds. They were in the external world, but primarily they were actually in the pastimes of the Lord at that time.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so Gopal Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class. Without any delay, straight to the question. These topics are very interesting as well as very intriguing as well. And I'm trying to understand these four things you mentioned here. Radharani's camp and Chandravali's camp, and then Manjari's role and the Gopis' role. So I'm trying to understand the difference, that how Gopis are playing their role and how Manjaris are playing their role. And as well, at one point you mentioned that Manjaris, they are, or rather straight to the, are they really expansions? Are they like, there's like personal expansion and there's a Jiva expansion. So which part they are?
That I actually don't know, and I don't know if someone knows. So like Srimati Radharani, she is the Hladini Shakti of the Lord. She is actually the internal potency of the Lord. So she's not marginal, she is internal potency. So we are Tatasha Shakti, meaning we can go either way. But she is internal energy. Now, she's in the same, you could say, she's on the same side of the wall as the Jivas. Like Krishna is the enjoyer and we are enjoyed. Right? Krishna is the object of love, we are the lovers. So she takes the same role, the same mood. She has the same mood as the Jivas because she is serving Krishna. She wants to serve Krishna. But she is internal energy, Hladini Shakti, not Tatasha Shakti. So the 8 principal gopis, they're actually expansions of Srimati Radharani. So they're part of the internal potency of the Lord. So not exactly expansions of Krishna, but expansions of Srimati Radharani. Now the Manjaris, are they expansions of Srimati Radharani? Or are they like Jivas who are very, very empowered like us? I don't know. But they're Manjaris, and they're the 8 principal Manjaris. So certainly they can never fall down. They're on a level of closeness to Krishna where they're so intimately connected with Krishna that they can never fall down. And they certainly can experience things that we cannot experience, levels of ecstasy that we cannot experience. Like Mahabhav, for example, they say only Srimati Radharani can experience because the jiva cannot even handle such happiness, such ecstasy. Like will actually blow up if it's like connecting, a powerhouse to a little light bulb. It just it's going to pop. So, so that is, there are different degrees and different degrees of expansions. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, some of the explanations, I don't remember the reference for that. In one place, if you go to Barsana, in there, all those pujaris and the sevaks, they explain that Sakis were personal incarnations, or rather personal expansions of Radharani. They came from the nails of Radharani when Radharani needed the help. And Manjaris, I don't know how Manjaris appeared. It's still open question for my understanding.
Yes. Yes. No, I don't actually. That's a very good question. Yes. Thank you. Swati Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the
Hare
wonderful
Krishna.
class.
Done.
My question was also along the same lines, Prabhuji. You mentioned about Chandravali and Radharani's camp. And in the Krishna book, I think I had read that Chandravali is one of the 8 principal gopis, but on the altar, in Mayapur, obviously, I think we don't have her because, we don't really, she is not part of the gopis we worship or look up to. So my question was, like, is there another sampradaya that follows Chandravali, and why is this transcendental competition, or why do we not look up to her or something like that?
Yes. So first of all, we definitely look up to Chandravali Devi, and also we worship her. All these liberated souls, all these devotees are unimaginably great souls, and we definitely do. But what you're saying and what you're meaning is that we're not in their line, right? So there are different paramparas and different ways of serving Krishna, and we are not, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is not exactly in their line. We're followers of Srimati Radharani. So, I actually don't remember if Chandravali is part of the 8 principal gopis or not, and if she's on the altar in Mayapur or not. That I'll have to see. But she is considered kind of like the second. Well, not exactly, because Lalita and Vishakha are closest to Srimati Radharani. So yeah, she's one of the principal gopis, definitely, of Lord Krishna. If she's counted one of the 8 or not, that I'm not sure, but she's definitely one of the principal gopis, and she pleases Krishna and Srimati Radharani by that service that she does. She makes their pastimes more enjoyable by trying to win Krishna's favor, and so yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So one more thing, if I may add
Yes.
here.
Yes.
I heard one of the conversations from one of the Maharaj. They differentiate between Radharani and Chandravali. Like Radharani's mood is that I'm all Krishna's whole, and Chandravali's mood is that Krishna is mine.
Actually, it's opposite, Prabhu. But you make the right distinction, that there's a difference of mood there, of rasa, and that's the thing of rasa, and Rupa Goswami covers this in the Nectar devotion. The rasa of Srimati Radharani is that Krishna is mine, and the rasa of Chandravali, who's more in the mood of Rukmini, is that I am Krishna's. So Radharani is more feisty. She's more, she likes to chastise Krishna, and Krishna enjoys that more. And Chandravali is very submissive, and Krishna, sometimes needs relief. So he goes, then Chandravali, okay, she'll just, she will just, she won't chastise me. But then, again, these are just different rasas, all of them unlimitedly perfect and unlimitedly equal and joyful to Lord Krishna. Well, yes, that is a difference in mood. Yes. Well, that's what differentiates them also. And so therefore, some of us may be attracted to that line. We have to understand that just like in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Murari Gupta was attached to Lord Ram and Ramayan, and he was one of Lord Chaitanya's associates, and the Lord could not change him. In the same way, our eternal Swarupa, we don't know. And it may change, it can change, but it may not. And Krishna, this is all up to Krishna. This is not up to us. Brandy, you're next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
So happy to start our classes again. So I have a bit more of a technical question just about the book itself. I was curious what the purpose of keeping, of pairing the second half with this first half is then. Like, why keep the extended detailed parts that we don't like focus on when studying this book, why keep them together then, if that makes sense? Like, and who is that second half meant for to read?
I see. No, actually, we just do a fourth of the book. There are four directions of this ocean, and we only cover the eastern direction. And there's, this, just like every ocean, Prabhupada says, there's four directions, we only cover 1/4. So all four sections are meant for us. I mean, in fact, devotees, they distribute nectar devotion on the streets to complete newcomers. And under Prabhupada's time, they were doing that. So the whole book is meant for us, and we should read it cover to cover. But in the Bhakti Shastri, for this course, because the first part is the most foundational, so to say, yes, it's the most foundational, therefore it's covered. Because we do sort of, you could say, like they do in college, right? Foundational texts. So these are the key texts, and then one can graduate and do more and more and more. So we have Bhakti Shastri, then Bhakti Vaibhav, then Bhakti Sarvabhauma, Bhakti, all those things. So the higher courses, they actually cover the rest of the book. But of course, one doesn't have to take the course. One can also just read it.
Okay.
And there's a very good study guide for the whole nectar devotion that one can get. And it's a very, very wonderful study guide. If someone is interested, I can share that with you. But for now, we just do the eastern side, which, as you'll see, has a lot in it. So it's only because of time that we're doing only 1/4 of it. The time limitation of the course is why this course was designed by Prabhupada, just covering the first section.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. I was a little confused. I didn't even know if I should try to read it at some point. So
no, it is actually quite a bit. So one could wait and finish other books before reading that, or one can read it. It just depends on our interest. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Darshan Prabhu, or no? Yeah. Darshan.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, and my apologies actually for the earlier unmute incident.
Oh, no problem.
So my question was pertaining to like we often hear whenever there are Gaur Leelas or Krishna Leelas or even Mahaprabhu's Leelas with the 6 Goswamis, whenever like we hear like something remarkable has been achieved by the devotees, they are either categorized into like a non-jiva tattva, as you mentioned that they were like Rupa Goswami himself is Rupa Manjari from Golok Vrindavan. So we as jiva tattvas, it's personally for me it is pretty humbling to see that do jivas have no role play in the entire like leelas of Krishna? Because anytime, even in Gaur Leela, like Murari is incarnation of Hanumanji.
Yes.
And like we never see, like I'm yet to encounter a situation where I like we hear, oh, this was a jiva and he achieved so much more. So yeah, it's kind of little baffling that do we as jivas have like no not that I'm envious, but like
what is our role? Yes.
Yeah.
What is our role? Yes. So I mean, to give you an example, what we might have as a role in Krishna's pastime. So you gave the example of Murari Gupta and how Murari Gupta is Hanuman, and Murari Gupta is also a close associate of Lord Chaitanya. And to be so close to the Lord is an extraordinary thing. So it's, like you're saying, it's not an ordinary jiva. So do we get that chance? So what a chance that, for example, might be ours, or an example of a jiva, is to become one of the millions of monkey soldiers of Lord Ram. So not Hanuman, but in the same mood as Hanuman, and the monkey soldiers, they are serving Hanumanji and Lord Ram in the same mood. So we can, a jiva could become one of the many monkeys that serves Lord Ram, one of his many devotee monkeys in that battle. And I actually know one devotee who has suggested that this is his rasa. He's a very advanced devotee, and he's in Ram Leela, and he's very attracted to it. And he's not an ordinary devotee. So they have indicated that. Of course, a person who knows their rasa will generally never indicate it. They may tell us some indications or something, but they generally will never indicate it. So something like that. And you think, well, oh, that's not so fun. But the point is that even if we are a flower in the spiritual world, the ecstasy there goes beyond the ecstasy of liberation, because the ecstasy is in the devotional service. The ecstasy is not in the role that we play. The ecstasy is in the mood, relationship, and service that we do. So, for example, in Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when he was leaving his body, then he was praying again and again, loudly, to he had cancer and he was leaving his body. He was asking the Lord, begging the Lord, let me become a stone in Vrindavan. Let me become a stone in Vrindavan. And some very neophyte devotees after that, they were criticizing, they were saying, why is he saying he wants to be a stone? That is Shantaras. Why is he not saying he wants to be a friend of Krishna? But we don't realize that it is precisely the devotees who don't even think they're qualified to be a stone in Vrindavan who become the friends of Krishna. You see, so these are we right now in our material senses we cannot imagine why something like that would be so blissful. But one who actually has spiritual taste and spiritual senses, they can actually give a genuine prayer because they know what that means, and we don't know what that means. So as far as what we read in the scriptures, how we can have the faith that this happens, all these associates of the Lord, like the millions of cowherd boy friends that Krishna has, they're not all eternal associates of the Lord. So Krishna has millions of cowherd boy friends. Most of them, pretty much all of them are jivas. Only the principal ones like Sridham, and Sridham and anyway, it's escaping me. Subal, all of these, they are eternal associates where, you won't find a Krishna book where all of a sudden Sridham is missing because he went down to the material world, because he fell from the spiritual like the jiva did. No, Krishna's pastimes cannot work like that. So, but we can become a cowherd friend. Then Krishna has millions of cows. And in every universe, there's different cows. And so we can become one of the cows. And the cows, I don't want to be a cow, but the cows are in the motherly rasa with Krishna. So they're in the parental role, very advanced rasa. They see Krishna as their child, as their son, because they give their milk to him. So we can become one of the cows of Krishna. And then finally, as you could say, very authentic Shastric reference to that jivas can become these, to give us that heart. In the Bhagavatam, it describes that when Krishna performed his Rasa Leela, so will be very interesting for you. It describes that some of the gopis, so these were the gopis, remember. Krishna also has millions of gopis, right? So some of the gopis, they were able to see Krishna. So when Krishna plays his flute, they all run towards Krishna. They all try to leave their homes and go to Krishna. Some of them were able to successfully escape. So they escaped and they were able to see Krishna. And others were locked in their homes and they were not able to see Krishna at that time for that Rasa Leela, that dance that happened. And we should note that Krishna's Rasa dance happens every night during the autumn season. So when the moon is full, every night Krishna does Rasa Leela. So that particular night, which was the first night, some gopis could not go. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he describes how the gopis who could not go were gopis that were not fully purified. They were, I mean, obviously completely pure devotees, but even at that stage, they were not completely ready to have the direct association of the Lord. And so in their separation, and this the Bhagavatam describes that in their separation, they actually burned, the fire of separation burned their material bodies. But they never die. There's no description that these gopis die. So their bodies burn, and that burns off their material bodies, and all that is left is their spiritual body. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that by definition, these gopis had to be jiva souls who became gopis. Otherwise, if they're liberated souls, how could they have something to be burnt off? So they were souls that were getting training, that were engaged in one of Krishna's pastimes on this planet, received training, and that experience of separation completely purified their bodies, their forms, so that the next time then they could dance with the Lord. So these were gopis, imagine, and they were jivas who became gopis. Prabhupada in another place writes how once a person becomes a pure devotee and he attains the abode of the Lord, he goes back to Godhead, then actually they don't directly go back to Godhead. They first go to a place in the material world where Krishna is performing his pastimes. So some universe, Krishna is always performing his pastimes, right? So they go to that place, and there they gain training. They become trained how to serve the Lord. And then once they assist in Krishna's pastimes on this planet, then they will go back to the spiritual world once they're fully trained. So it's kind of like a two-step process. And Krishna's pastimes in this world are also the spiritual world. It's the same dhamma, but still they gain training. So, so Krishna has unlimited places where unlimited pastimes are going. And we may go to some place and get trained there. And Prabhupada says this. Why? Because we can go there, right? He says we serve and participate in Krishna's pastimes. So long story short, we should never feel qualified for any of these roles. Like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, our prayer should be just to become a blade of grass or a stone in Vrindavan. But of course, the goal is one day, hopefully, that is our aspiration, not qualification, but aspiration maybe, to serve Krishna in a certain way. And we find numerous examples in the scriptures of jiva souls specifically mentioned who participate in Krishna's pastimes.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and actually, you can read that section. It's in the section Song of Gopi's separation. The beginning of the Rasa dance section, where it says that how some of the gopis burned up their bodies, and in the commentary there, it's I think Hridananda Maharaj also rewrites what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, that yes, indeed, that these gopis were jiva souls who became fully purified as a result of their separation from Krishna. Thank you. Kalavati.
Haribol Prabhuji, thank you so much for today's class, Nectar Srila Rupa Goswami. I had a question to ask about Rupa Goswami. Should we strive to develop a connection with him? He's obviously such a significant character, personality in Vaishnavism, in Krishna consciousness. So what is our role in trying to develop a connection with him? And if so, how can we do that?
Yes, Prabhupada said that we are Rupa Nugas, we are followers of Rupa Goswami. So the way we make a relationship with him, I think, is the same way we make a relationship with any of the acharyas, is that we sincerely try to imbibe his instructions. So all the great, you could say, the very lucid instructions that he's given on the science of bhakti, and in this way serve him and try to follow his, Prabhupada said, under the supervision of Rupa Goswami, and try to serve him. try to follow his instructions by serving the servant of the servant of the servant, as we say, the servant of the servants of Rupa Goswami. And then as a result of doing that, then the devotee waits until Rupa Goswami himself makes a connection with us. Going back to the same principle that Prabhupada says, that the devotee does not endeavor to see the world, see the Lord, but the devotee acts in such a way that the Lord will want to see him or her. So in the same way, we follow his instructions so nicely that the Lord wants to, or Rupa Goswami wants to see us. And Narottam Das Thakur therefore has told us that the way we make a connection is to be very enthusiastic to read their literatures. And as we've seen, as we will see, Rupa Goswami gives very practical instructions on the practice of bhakti. So by following his very practical instructions, we will also make that connection.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very well explained. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. There's one question in the chat that I want to cover. It's a nice question. I think it's by Giridhar Prabhu. Here we go. Where's the chat box? Here we go. Okay, Hare Krishna. Who actually preserved in written form the whole Vedic literature since after the Goswamis? Was there written copies of the Bhagavatam when Srila Prabhupada translated, or is it from versions of Srila Rupa Goswami that helped him translate the Srimad Bhagavatam? Hare Krishna. Very nice question. So the specific contribution actually of the Goswamis was that they wrote down this science of bhakti. And like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and these, they wrote extensive commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam explaining the words. And by writing commentaries, they also, you could say, in some ways confirm the text itself, right? Because they're commentating on a certain text, so they had access to certain texts. So how do we get the Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, the Srimad Bhagavatam is passed down through the process of parampara, from master to disciple, master to disciple. So the first person to write it down was Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago. And since that time, it's been given through the sages, both in verbal but also written form. And it's reached us. The Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada had is the Bhagavatam that is known as a critical edition, meaning that if you have 4 or 5 editions, then someone puts it together and says, well, 3 out of the 4 say this. So this is where in this 4th one, the word changed. So people can reconstruct text, or not construct it, it's already there, but analyze text by making what is known as a critical edition, meaning that you take all the editions and you make one edition. So this was the most widely read, kind of established Sanskrit copy of the Bhagavatam. And with that same edition, which I've seen, it's widely available in libraries around the world, there are 8 commentaries that are written on the Bhagavatam. So it has a verse and 8 commentaries below it, starting from Sridhar Swami all the way to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Jiva Goswami also like that. It has 8 commentaries. So not only the verses there, but the commentaries are there, which are explaining every single word. So you kind of know, okay, these are the words because 8 commentators are explaining those words. So that's how Srila Prabhupada had it. And the Goswamis, they are the commentators on the Bhagavatam. So that's how they are connected with the Bhagavatam. And after the Goswamis, many of their books were lost. It's very sad, but most of the books were preserved. And they're in manuscript libraries. There's a big endeavor in ISKCON to preserve and digitize all these books. And that's called the Bhaktivedanta Research Center, which is established in Calcutta. And every month or so, they have these manuscript expeditions where they go throughout India, finding manuscripts that are about to be destroyed, collecting them and digitizing them. So their books are very rare, very amazing. I think Jiva Goswami alone wrote over 1 million words, something like that. Just Jiva Goswami alone. He wrote 1 million words on bhakti, on the science of devotional service. He was the most prolific among all the 6 Goswamis. But the other Goswamis, they all also wrote books. And we've been fortunate to have them. And they have not been lost. So yeah, the Bhaktivedanta Research Center is available. Actually, they are actually looking for devotees to help them, both in terms of digitizing these books, preserving these books. There's a whole project, very wonderful project. Thank you very much. Brandy.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I had a question based off of your response to somebody else, and you were explaining how you have an option to like go through training, right? I found that interesting because at Krishna House, we when going through the Bhagavad Gita, we had a lengthy conversation about how you get like, in my mind, I kind of described it as like a last chance ride or something, but like basically you get to go around and you see everything and see if there's anything that you want to experience very last.
Yes.
So is this kind of the same idea? I mean, like obviously a fully realized soul won't ask for anything, but there's still kind of like those desires, like for certain rosas, I guess. So is that also too where that decision comes in that Krishna makes, like where he sends you?
No, that's actually slightly different. What you are speaking is from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Very interesting what is it? Gopal? Something. Who remembers in Brihad Bhagavatamrita? Gopakumar. Yes, Gopakumar. So Gopakumar, he's showing that before we get liberated, before we go to enter Krishna's pastimes, we get a final tour of the material world. And if there's anything in the material world that still attracts us, that's where we stop. So, if you don't make it, that's why Prabhupada said, even if we have any material desire left, we cannot go back home, back to Godhead. We have to be completely convinced, nothing material, only Krishna, only spiritual. There's nothing of value in this material world. And that's why we see that sometimes devotees, they suffer a lot, or they go through a lot of difficulties or challenges. Why? Because Krishna is taking them through that process that we sometimes still, this will give me pleasure, but they're giving us through that process that nothing in this world, I don't want anything in this world, nothing in this world, everything in this world that I had hopes in has disappointed me, right? Everything in this world has disappointed me. So therefore, the only thing that has given pleasure to me is Krishna. Actually, just like we had this outing, I was mentioning, we went on this trip right now, and traveling is difficult, always all these things. And we all noticed that our trip to the Chicago temple, Kishore Kishori, that was like the whole trip, the best part was that. I mean, anything that you do in relation to Krishna, it becomes the most blissful part. Everything else was always a struggle or, difficulty or this or that. So, so if there's anything in this world that we still think will give us pleasure, we stop there. Now, after we go through that process and we're on the stage of Gopakumar, then Krishna will take us to a planet or someplace where we can learn how to serve Krishna. So this is like really the kind of the final apprenticeship. Like you have to do your residency before you become a doctor. And in that apprenticeship, there's some purification, some training, and just like in the spiritual world, there are no demons. But in Krishna's pastimes in the material world, there are demons. So we have different pastimes in the material world, and we get to participate in those pastimes. So yeah, that training is actual training.
Thank you so much. That makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking in my head. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I think we are all done. Very nice. I want to try every day to finish, every time to finish at this time, so it doesn't go too long. So I will send you your homework along with the study guide and all the information. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. If any of you have not joined the WhatsApp, please do. I think all of you have. You'll be hearing from me shortly regarding your exam scores. So for Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.